Hello, and welcome to our Financial Literacy Education Series, where we help you better understand your money, become more engaged with your money, and make better decisions about your money. My name's Corin Jacker. I'm from Priority One Wealth Management Group. Throughout our series, we've been covering a range of topics, starting from why you even need to understand your money, getting advice, looking at your cash flow and understanding whether there's a surplus amount of money that's important from a wealth creation perspective. We looked at wealth creation strategies of investing in your own name, debt reduction, superannuation, gearing. Also, some decisions you can make around investing your money in relation to asset class selection. We've looked at issues around retirement, aged care, insurance and protecting your assets, and estate planning. In these recent episodes, we've been covering off different stages of life, and the decisions people make in those stages will vary greatly. So we looked at people in their 20s and 30s just starting out, people in their 30s and 40s who probably have a mortgage and a family. Then in their 50s and 60s, so we're looking at potentially preparing more for retirement. And today we're looking at retirement, so typically 65 and over. But we're assuming for today's episode that we've finished work and we're in retirement phase. So the first thing we need to look at is where the income's coming from. So superannuation, which we covered off in a previous episode, for most of us covers a tax-free income in retirement. So that's the most common income stream at the moment in Australia. It's an allocated pension from a superannuation fund. So we simply take our accumulation fund that we've been building over our working life and we start an income stream with it where we get a regular payment. Depending on how we invest that money and how much we take out will depend on how long that money lasts. There are variations of income streams that we can take out, annuities being one of them, that can also be used to complement a allocated pension, and some of them have some Centrelink benefits as well. For most people, Centrelink will be part of the equation, so we need to look at age pension, what you're entitled to, and also potential ways that we can improve that entitlement. So most people, from an age pension perspective, are assessed under a means test, so income or asset testing, and there are some strategies in place to improve that test. So we can gift money, so that removes assets from our bank account. We can gift up to $10,000 a year from Centrelink's perspective. We can still gift more than that. But if we gift more than $10,000 a year or $30,000 over a 5-year period, Centrelink will count as an asset for 5 years. But then it disappears. So from a medium to long-term strategy, gifting large amounts of money can be beneficial. It won't help you much in the short term, but it can be beneficial in the medium to long term. Just need to consider other considerations around gifting. Make sure that the person receiving the money, it's appropriate for them to receive the gift. Also, we need to make sure that you've still got enough money left over to fund the rest of your retirement. Alongside gifting, another way to improve your means testing is by spending money on the home. So the home is an asset test exempt investment. So if we renovate the kitchen or the bathroom or we add a new deck, all that money that we're spending on the home is removed from our assets from a means test perspective. Third way is we can just spend more money. So travel is a good example. So if you're wanting to travel on an overseas trip and we reduce our cash funds because of it, that reduces our assets testing. Be careful though with things like buying a new car, because we're just removing our cash and then the car is an asset. Even though it will depreciate, it doesn't help much in the short term. If we're over the age pension means testing, make sure you look at other options in relation to concession cards as well. So if you're on the pension, you get a pension concession card, but there are also the Commonwealth Seniors Healthcare Card and the Low Income Healthcare Card as well. So make sure you look into those if you're not on the age pension and you're over age pension age. In relation to your investments and your income, a couple of things we need to think about in retirement. The first thing is what we term that cost of participation in society. What we mean by that is that what we consider today to be a necessity and what we consider today to be a luxury varies over your retirement. So if you think of someone who retired in their 60s or 70s or in the 80s, what was a luxury back then and what was a necessity back then became very different in the following 10 to 20 years. So if you're in your 80s, a VCR, a microwave, overseas travel, were all fairly luxurious items. Whereas over time they became pretty much necessity items, maybe not the overseas travel, but certainly things like TVs, microwaves. Then if we go forward, we can look at mobile phones, we can look at iPads. When they were first introduced, a lot of people said, I don't need one of those devices. But they've soon become a necessary part of our life. So you've got to think of today. What is a luxury item today and what is a necessity today? And that will change. What we consider luxury items today will become more mainstream, become more acceptable, become more necessary. So I even think of things like healthcare. So they're going to continue technology developments in relation to improving things like knee replacements or hip replacements. And what will become a luxury item in relation to getting a specific hip or knee replacement will become more expected as a necessity. All those changes cost money. So we need to think about how much we're wanting to live off today and what it costs to participate in society, but also what it will cost in 5, 10, 15 or 20 years' time. The same can be said with inflation. So inflation, as we know, increases the cost of living, and if we don't keep track of that, what we do is we start to lose the real value of our money. So if I'm invested in cash and I invest $100,000 in cash, I've still got $100,000 in 10 years' time, but it is not worth the same as it is today. So it's important to make sure the investments you have in retirement are structured in such a way where we at least hedge out inflation. However, to do that, you usually need to take a risk. So you need to buy some shares or property in order to hedge out inflation. And so buying those asset classes creates volatility in your portfolio. So we need to get a balance between the risk we're taking, but also getting enough return to make sure that we're keeping inflation at bay. Because we need to remember in relation to those asset class decisions and the asset management decisions that we're looking at this from a very long-term perspective. So a lot of people, when they approach retirement, start thinking that the retirement date is the time frame they're looking at. And so they become focused on the short term. And look, it's important to revisit your portfolio to make sure it's appropriate leading into and through retirement. But you've got to remember, when you retire, you've got a 10, 20, 30-year time frame. So you need to structure your portfolio with that view in mind. Other issues we need to consider in retirement, making sure that we're up to date in our estate planning, so wills and power of attorneys. Also, you may need to start considering things like aged care. So we need to look at the aged care system, whether you can get support in the home, whether you need to go into care. It's a complicated area, one that requires some advice. We have got another episode on it. Takeaway there is there's not a huge amount you can do to structure your assets in preparation for that, but you just need to be aware of the process and the requirements and what impact it may have if you look like needing to go into care in the near term. Thank you and goodbye.